I didn't find out my well was gone from a phone call. I found out because my house stopped breathing. The air inside felt wrong when I opened a door that evening. Dry, stale, dead. The soft hum of the groundwater pump that had run quietly beneath my floors for years was gone. At first, I thought it was a power outage. Then I stepped into my backyard. The ground where my family's stone well had stood for over 180 years was flat, smooth, gray, concrete. Fresh concrete, still damp at the edges. For a moment, my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. The well hadn't just been damaged, it hadn't collapsed. It had been deliberately erased. The circular stone structure, hand-laid limestone blocks my great-great-grandfather had helped quarry, was gone. In its place was a sealed concrete slab, stamped with orange warning cones and a laminated notice zip-tied to a stake. Quote, "Hazard abated by order of the HOA." End quote. My knees buckled. That well wasn't decoration, it wasn't a lawn feature. It was the original water source for this land, registered with the county as a protected heritage structure and legally tied to subterranean water rights that predated the entire neighborhood. And Karen knew that. Her real name was Patricia Holloway, but no one called her that anymore, not after she became HOA president. She had the look, late 30s, sharp bob haircut, smug expression, bright pink blazer she wore like a badge of authority. She moved into the neighborhood 2 years ago and treated it like a hostile takeover. Lawns weren't green enough, fences weren't uniform, wind chimes were acoustic violations. And my well? She called it an insurance nightmare. The first time she complained, she showed up with a clipboard and a fake smile. "That thing is dangerous," she said, pointing at it like it might bite her. "It's sealed and it's registered. You have the documents." She waved her hand dismissively. "Old paperwork. This is a modern community." The second time, she wasn't smiling. "You're lowering property values," she snapped. "No one wants to look at medieval ruins." The third time, I told her plainly, "Touch it and you'll regret it." She smiled then. A slow, confident smile. "We'll see." I should have installed more cameras. The HOA crew came while I was at work. 2 trucks, no city permits, no heritage officer, just a rented cement mixer or the crew that didn't ask questions. They smashed the stone ring inward, dumped concrete until the cavity was full, and sealed off the groundwater access that had quietly fed my property for generations. And Karen? She supervised. I found her across the fence, heels planted, arms crossed, phone held high as she took photos. "Well," she said brightly when she noticed me, "that's one less liability in the neighborhood." "I destroyed a registered landmark," I said quietly. She laughed. "Oh, please, it was a hole in the ground." Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "And if you try to fight this, I'll fine you until you can't afford to live here." I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I walked back into my house, closed the door, and sat in the dark as the consequences began unfolding. By midnight, my water pressure was gone. By morning, my soil had started to crack. By afternoon, my attorney was on his way. Because Karen didn't just destroy a well. She interfered with ancestral water rights, committed felony trespass, violated state heritage preservation law, and, without realizing it, triggered a clause that tied every downstream property's water stability to my land. And she did it all on camera.
Karen didn't sleep the night after the concrete pour. I know this because at 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed with an HOA violation notice, then another, and another. By sunrise, I had 12 fines for things that had apparently been violations for years, but only just now became emergencies. Unauthorized garden edging, improper historical structure remnants, unapproved soil discoloration. She was panicking, and panic always makes people sloppy. By 9 a.m., my attorney, Marcus Hale, was standing in my backyard staring at the concrete slab like a kid who'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. "She really did this?" he asked. "Filled it completely," I said. "No permits, no city notice." Marcus crouched, ran his hand over the stamped surface, and smiled slowly. "This isn't just bad," he said. "This is catastrophic." Karen thought the well was just an old hole. What it actually was leverage. Marcus explained it to me like this. The well wasn't merely a structure, it was the legal anchor point for the original water rights deed filed in 1843. When the land was later subdivided, every single surrounding property inherited secondary access dependent on that primary source, which meant one thing. By sealing it, Karen didn't just harm me, she jeopardized the entire neighborhood's groundwater stability. And in this state, interfering with registered water rights wasn't a civil issue, it was a felony. By noon, the city's heritage and environmental enforcement officers were on site, not because I called them, because Marcus did. And he didn't just report vandalism, he reported unauthorized destruction of protected infrastructure tied to public water flow. Karen arrived 20 minutes later in her pink blazer, sunglasses on, clipboard clutched like armor. "What is all this?" she snapped. "This is private HOA business." The lead inspector didn't even look at her. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "step away from the site. You can't talk to me like that. I'm the HOA president." That was the moment everything shifted. The inspector finally turned, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Then you should know better." They peeled back the concrete that afternoon. What they found underneath wasn't just rubble. It was documented stonework, clearly marked, clearly photographed in state archives. Karen stood there as they cataloged every fragment, her confidence drained with every clipboard note. By sunset, she was no longer giving orders, she was asking questions. "Is this going to be a fine?" she asked one officer nervously. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a yellow notice. "Stop work, criminal investigation pending." The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Sunday. Karen insisted it go on. She needed witnesses, she needed control. She didn't realize she'd invited her own execution. The community center was packed. Word had spread fast. No water pressure, city trucks, inspectors. Neighbors were whispering before the meeting even started. Karen took the stage, smile stiff, voice tight. "There's been some misinformation regarding a so-called historic well." That's when Marcus and I walked in. I wasn't carrying a binder. I was carrying a court file thick enough to bend. Marcus saw it and froze. "This meeting is for residents only," she snapped. Marcus smiled. "Perfect." He walked straight to the microphone. "My name is Marcus Hale. I represent the homeowner at Lot 17, and as of 9:42 this morning, this HOA and its president are named defendants in a criminal and civil action." The room erupted. Karen lunged for the microphone. "You can't do this here." "Oh, we can," Marcus replied calmly, "because you did this here." He turned to the crowd. "Did anyone here experience reduced water pressure this week?" Hands shot up. Cracks in soil, pipe issues, dry taps? More hands. Marcus nodded. "That's because your HOA president illegally sealed the primary groundwater access point for this subdivision." Karen's face went white. "That's not... I was removing a hazard." Marcus clicked a remote. The projector turned on. Blueprints, deeds, photos, video footage, including Karen on camera supervising the concrete pour. "You destroyed a protected heritage structure. You interfered with registered water rights. You trespassed, and you exposed every homeowner here to potential environmental liability." The treasurer stood up. "Karen, did the board approve this?" Silence. "Karen?" he repeated. She whispered, "I didn't think it mattered." That was it. The board voted on the spot to remove her as president. Then came the lien notices. Because the damages weren't theoretical. Emergency groundwater restoration, structural remediation, soil stabilization, legal exposure. Marcus slid the total across the table later that week. $2.3 million. Karen didn't have it. The HOA refused to cover it. The city filed criminal charges. Her house was seized first, then her car. The pool she'd bragged about in every meeting, drained and condemned due to groundwater instability. 3 months later, the well was restored, stone by stone, using heritage specialists paid for by the settlement. The water returned, the land healed. And Karen? She moved into a third-floor apartment across town. No yard, no authority, no water pressure complaints to file. Sometimes I drive past the old neighborhood and see the new HOA sign. Under it, a small plaque reads, "Protected Heritage Site, Do Not Disturb." Karen thought concrete made things permanent. She learned the hard way that law lasts longer than ego. And power? Power only works until it meets consequences.